arguments. They push a certain narrative. I don't know. Wait, Suris, did you see the clip that I sent you where he watched a video of someone scrolling through my tweets mentioning children?
And that's so I watched it for about a couple seconds, and then I clicked away because that's about my usual when I deal with Asmondgold. I figured that's what he does to most of our content anyway, so whatever.
Yeah.
Actually, he hasn't seen any. He hasn't responded to any videos I've done. So I say our content, technically only you. I've not been on his radar yet.
I mean, I believe that it was really performative. When he went to like this one highlight that I posted, this one little sneak peek, and cut me off mid-sentence because like he knew that if he played it for longer, it is not going to fit into his narrative.
Oh, it never does. It never does. Like the worst thing for a React Andy streamer to deal with is context.
Yeah, I'm a bottom.
Yeah, we don't need context for that. Because the worst thing that could happen is context.
The thing is, like, I believe that he literally clicked on the stuff and he saw, like, oh, I can use this out of context to, like, push a certain narrative in order to, like, discredit this person. Because, I quote-unquote attacked Kirche for no reason with, like, out-of-context clips in order to, like, take the sponsors away. And because they're both in Mythic, I feel like it's literally just the same thing they did with Anna, but it is really difficult to like actually read what I'm saying in order to push this groomer and pedo narrative.
Yeah, CVT says you people sound funny with a slight bit of delay.
Aspen is dishonest. Oh yeah. So the same with like the Clipper, because like this whole situation blew up as much as it did because the Clipper actually saw the video that I posted on like how sloptubers manipulate their audience, and I was like I was talking about like what they were doing, taking things out of context, and then they took things out of context and they blow it up out of proportion, because like what I'm saying is like I believe HRT should be accessible when you're 16. You should be able to like work with experts. Before that, you should be able to like work with you should be able to like socially transition and things like that.
If I'm correct, most of the gender affirming care, therapy, things of that nature, the only time they do surgery is most of the time when you're 18 or older. But before that, it takes like months and months and months. Like I think 6 or more months before the people in their field can say that, yeah, this person has gender dysphoria, or basically they're actually trans. That's even for the surgeries if they so choose. That's just to identify you as trans or somebody who has gender dysphoria as a minor. If I'm correct, this is for those who undergo gender affirming care over 18 as well. They do basically the same thing, and after they do that, then they might prescribe to you puberty blockers or pausers. They usually try to do that before 18 years old, because obviously undergoing to puberty is not necessarily the ideal. So I think that is what maybe Nara educates people on. I don't really know most of her content that much. All I've seen is this, and her reacting to transphobes and people who don't like her via like AI things of her. It was kind of an interesting video. It was funny. It was like, wow, really people are that obsessed with this person? That's it's unhealthy, and it could be sinful and perverted depending on how you do it. If you're obsessed in the sense of her content and you understand the information that she gives to people, and you might disagree or agree with that, and so you can make a video about that. That's different than what I saw that Naya reacted to, which was, in all lack of better terms, possibly, definitely, if you wills, pervert freaks who don't have a life and don't touch grass, basically.
And but they have to like take this, blow it out of proportion, and be like, oh, if a boy feels like a girl that day, then you want them to chop their genitalia off when they're 8, and you want them on HRT when they're 8, and it's like, puberty didn't even start at that point. Shut the fuck up. The same transphobes have no problem with breast implants for 8-year-old girls. I mean, these people aren't outraged when it comes to, because like that was the whole point of the argument.
I think it's more so of the breast implants for like 16-year-olds, or basically breast implants in general. Like some conservatives are not consistent. Even some Christians are not consistent with it. I'm consistent with it. No surgeries for kids. I don't think it's the ideal to get breast implants unless if it's for need an emergency, if it's an actual medical issue. But it's going to either be gender dysphoria or just something else. Like again, I think it's called onset puberty, or basically, again, for lack of a better term, puberty that's not supposed to happen yet, but yeah, it is happening, so therefore we gotta give them, if it's the right decision, if it's the right thing to do, give them puberty blockers, or say puberty pausers, to pause that puberty so they can develop the, you can say, normal way, or the general way that you're supposed to develop via puberty at your age.
People push a certain narrative, and it doesn't matter. So I kind of get the frustration with like they are.
And if you're frustrated with the fact that I might have skipped a lot, don't worry. You let's just say you didn't miss much. It was a lot of things that they joked about, things of that nature. That it's not really the point of the video. That's gonna be most likely 2,000 hours long for my video, possibly. We'll see. We'll just see. The point is, it was some jokes, and to be honest, hot takes, some sexually immoral talk that they were doing, and it was just like, well, that's not part of the point here, so we're just gonna skip it and get back to the meat of this video.
Not engaging in good faith. Why should you like actually give them a good faith response? Why don't you just like attack them instead? And circling back to what Suris mentioned, like I don't believe that's like a good strategy when it comes to like educating the general public, because like a lot of people don't even know Asmondgold exists. He is not like a mainstream media figure. A lot of people think that like Hassan is the face of Twitch.
Yeah, however, both of them have broken TOS and has not really suffered any consequences. One being a terrorist, specifically Hamas, I think also Hezbollah, especially the Houthis, terrorist sympathizer, Hasan Piker, and Asmondgold, all this, basically. That I think some of it might be against TOS, but I don't know fully the TOS of Twitch, but I do know that at least for Assad, yeah, he should have been banned a long time ago, but neither here nor there. And I'll say this, I'll still get a little bit more into that, actually. Most of my information I got regarding Hassan, and later on H3H3 a little bit, comes from Counterpoint. I think he's a pretty good source. He might not get everything right, but I think he did get the majority of it right regarding Hassan Piker.
Because like he is actually involved in debates and stuff. And like he has his attacks on Asmondgold as well, but like his content is not just like attacking other people. And I think if you're a smaller creator who doesn't have like the privilege that Asmondgold has with like his audience, then you kind of need to actually address these claims properly. And I think if I would just like attack them, be like, "Oh, you filthy roach," I don't think I would have gotten the support that I have.
Yeah,
and
you'd only get the support from people who are already predisposed against Asmon. But there's like
exactly,
there's a lot of people who watched Asmon back when he was doing like Path of Exile and World of Warcraft stuff primarily, and for those people, when they stopped watching Asmon, it may just because of the the normal drop off that happens when you're watching a content creator. You've watched them for a few years, you move on to somebody else. It happens all the time. And then they hear Asmon's got beef with this other person you've not heard of, but you've heard of Asmon, and you know that he's a stand-up guy, because that's the Asmon that you knew from a few years ago. So now you're default on Asmon's side, and if you go to the other person's content, and all you see them doing is making fun of Asmon's hygiene, you're going to start getting defensive on Asmon's side, even if you're somebody that stopped watching him years ago.
Yeah. It's also like just look at what is happening to like H3 and to Ethan. Like he is losing his mostly progressive audience that he gained over the years, and replace them with like the Hassan haters.
Which might be true, and I would agree that as they get into later on, hate will not really give you the supply of viewers, because like they basically said, the only people you will have is just people who hate the other person. It can work with rage economics, but when it comes to just viewership in general, if you're always basically just anti this, some people might gear to that, but ultimately it's not a good strategy of growth, as they will get into later on. But I will disagree with them on this. It's like, I don't think it's just anti-Hassan people, it's anti-terrorist people, respectfully. Like, to be honest, the basic drama, recap drama for another drama here, anti-drama like video. I barely do these things, but well, might as well. Basically, Hassan is one of, if not the biggest Twitch streamers on Twitch, obviously, and one of the most well-known influencers in generality. He basically sympathizes for the terrorist organizations of Hamas, possibly Hezbollah, speaks kind of well, not really well, but speaks in a way that's kind of interesting when it comes to Iran. He doesn't ignore the theocracy, but it's like he kind of ignores their terrorism, apparently, and the Houthis. Boy, he talked with the Houthi once. I think he actually called him the Anne Frank of the Gaza-Israel situation, if I'm correct, basically. Which is obviously just terrible and not true, and just repent of that, Hassan. Like, what? No. No, that Houthi rebel is not Anne Frank in any sense of the word. And so H3H3, if I'm correct, either he's Jewish himself, or his wife is Jewish, or they're both Jewish, is like, hey man, Hassan, you're my pal, kinda, how about, just be like Hamas bad? And that was tough for Hassan to do, apparently, and so they, went back and forth, nukes back and forth, things of that nature, and yeah, that's basically the TLDR of that drama. Let's get back to this drama, kind of.
And that's just not sustainable. Like, literally, look at what his Instagram stories are. He doesn't do anything other than be like shitting on his son, and people go like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." Wow.
Hot take, that's based. I mean, one of Hassan's friends had a swastika handle on one of his samurai swords or Japanese swords. They're like, no, it's not the swastika, it's the swastika, basically. It's, weird maniac sent, I think, a dead dog to Hassan's home or try to get CPS on him and his kids for false allegations. It's again, counterpoints have spoken a lot about this, so I might not be getting everything precise, but it's like, no, it's not just hating Hassan. Like, there's a reason why H3H3 is having a bone to pick with Hassan. It's a lot more than what they're saying here, to be honest.
Oh, I'm going to like support you. But
we love you shitting on Hassan, and then
yeah.
Like, the thing is, most of the people who shit on Hassan exist in two worlds. I mean, there's obviously more people than this, but like primarily I see two kinds of people. Right-wingers who hate him because he talks about left-wing politics, and the left-wingers and centrists as well that don't like him because he does champagne leftism.
Yeah, but also there's a third option. I think a big one. He's a terrorist sympathizer. And I don't think a lot of people like terrorist sympathizers.
He acknowledges that he does champagne leftism. Like, he's got a shit ton of money, and also he's arguing for socialism. And there's a weird look with that a lot of people have pointed out. Like, those are your two people. Those people.
Yeah, although I don't necessarily like agree with that stance, because like, oh, just because you're like a socialist doesn't mean that you shouldn't have like any money or like success.
Yeah.
Like,
but it is
Yeah, because some people don't understand what socialism is. Socialism is the modification of basic human needs and workers only in the means of production. Ideally, you can have socialism within like communities, like small towns possibly. Maybe we'll see New York, maybe a city, but like once it's like straight up national, then it could become communistic. Possibly. Communism is the idea of a stateless, classless, spaceless society, etc. Basically, there's no work, because there'll basically be no money, and everything will be taken care of. It's usually within a authoritarian regime, because communism just would never work, and socialism will never work. Though socialism does have one thing, right? The critiques of capitalism. But their solutions are somewhat dog trash. Not all of them. You have mixed economy, which I think we're trying to have here in America, which we still have to an extent. But basically, champagne leftism or champagne socialism is basically you're all for the workers, but yet you're a millionaire who buys fancy cars. Now, what they're about to say is basically what they're about to say is going to be proof, but basically to keep it a little bit longer, but basically to lengthen the meaning of what they're about to say is basically, if you're living in a capitalistic society, it's going to be very hard to enact socialism. And so, obviously, socialists are going to have money, they're going to have businesses. Socialism isn't against business. They just think that basically it's a democratic system of the business. Basically, everybody gets a say and a share, and the workers own the means of production instead of they're a boss. If I'm correct, there is a boss in socialism, but either that or basically everybody's a boss in a sense. Which again can kind of work, but this, as long as it's not national socialism, which will most likely turn to communism, that's when things get bad, basically.
It is a common argument. It is a common argument you'll find against him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you're a communist, why do you live in like an expensive mansion and don't donate it to others? But like he does fundraising and
if you're a
I feel like on the left,
why do you have Magic the Gathering cards?
Yeah. Oh, why do you like buy into consumerism with like getting all these gimmicks in your background and stuff like that?
Because that's the world we're living in, but we're trying to strive towards socialism by, let's say, based on what I know about Hassan, besides being a terrorist sympathizer, he seems to be doing some things, but not as much as he could. Because if I'm correct, he is a millionaire and a huge influencer. I think he has enough capital and influence and wealth to really make some change in the world. It is as in a socialist like framework. I think he can, but I don't think he does because I don't think he wants to, or I don't know. I don't know the whole guy, but as I know of, he has the ability, but he doesn't do it, and it does look bad. It does.
Cause it's my job.
Yeah.
And it's a tax write-off.
Yeah, it's for the background, so it's just stuff to look at. We're talking with Suris right now, who we're talking about like the Asmondgold stuff, and also about like trans issues. And I think right now we're talking about how H3's content basically revolves around hating Hassan, and that's just like the thing is like people attack Asmond for his hygiene, and it's like a really cheap shot. And the reason why I still, engage with good faith for the most part and do content for like educational purposes is because like I don't believe that attacking his hygiene would get me the support that I have right now. And also B, I still have like some form of go with my content. And so we are basically talking about right now. I think right now the point was like the people H3 basically attracts by attacking Hassan. I think that's
how unsustainable of a model that is. Like you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like if
it's all natural survival.
Like as an example, if after the Asmondgold drama you made it a point to just do a lot of anti-Asmondgold content, and that's just what you farmed for the next freaking 2 months or so, a few of your audience members who have been longtime members would drop off.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
As soon as you stopped doing just anti-Asmondgold content, the viewers you gained who were there specifically for that would also drop off, and as a net gain, you would have actually lost viewers to doing that.
Yeah.
It's an unsustainable model that relies on having an enemy for your audience to attack and constantly doing that. There's a reason why the most successful versions of that model, think about the 10 bits, bravo. There's a reason why the most successful versions of that model make sure that the enemy is something that is so esoteric and vague that they can attack it forever and people can insert whatever villain they want in there.
Like wokeism, but I think a more better example that does work is Satan in his wicked kingdom. It's not vague, but it could be a lot of things, and it's spiritual, so of course it's beyond the natural world of things, obviously. That might be an example. Another example that's good, that's like, yeah, Satan's a forever enemy until he's not, basically, in a sense. So we got a lot of Innocence Way content to talk about his wicked kingdom of darkness and how to confront that with the kingdom of God and his righteousness and his light. That we should, through God working through us, show that light to others.
It's like the thing we talked about earlier with the cosmic horror way of doing React Andy content. You don't provide enough of your opponent's argument so that your opponent or that your audience will insert the worst version of it in their brain. So let's say you're familiar with Alex Jones, right?
Yeah.
So like, let's say you're Alex Jones. You're gonna be fighting against the deep state, the globalists, and the radical left. And you may have a couple specifics in there. You might have a George Soros or an AOC as like specific targets one day out of the week, but you're never going to make anti-George Soros be your entire personality. You're never going to make being anti-AOC your entire personality and sustain it. The reason that Alex has been able to make a career out of what he does, not to glaze Alex Jones, he's a piece of shit, but it is good to recognize the things your enemies do well. He made his villain that his audience needs to be rallied against so vague that he can insert anybody into it whatsoever. He can call anyone the deep state. He can call anybody a radical lefty. He can call anybody satanic. He can do all those things.
And we as Christians, and I try to do, is to be specific and to give you information and context. I don't just say XYZ about Hasan Piker without saying something, some type of information, like him being a terrorist sympathizer, and a lot of other things. And I gave a source, counterpoints, so you can get all that information that I just given you. So I'm not just saying Hasan Piker's bad because he might be a terrorist sympathizer and just say that without anything else. Because that would be a misuse of my influence and a misuse of my leadership as an influencer in a sensible way.
So he gets to have a consistent, vague enemy, and you get to fill in the blanks with whoever the fuck you think that enemy is that week.
Yeah, it's the same with like woke and DEI.
Yeah,
because like if you go to the root of it, it's literally just like woke is just anyone who, I mean, it's basically the same with like DEI. It's LGBTQ community, people of color, and women, like just all women.
Yep.
Specifically the women that do not fit into their worldview, like if you're a woman with masculine traits, for example.
And I just want to say, I think I might have a card there. Basically, talk about legit wokeism, because legit wokeism is a real thing. And basically, wokeism is not what the right says. To be honest, it's something else. And I actually have a coherent definition, unlike the right wing. Unlike the right wingers. Also, basically, legit wokeism on the right is rockism. Basically, say rock, but say the O. Say the name of the O. Rockism, basically.
You are going to be a target. If you're a man with feminine traits, you are going to be a target. And with like the woke agenda, the DEI, like it started with video games, where it got like really big, being like, oh, they're inserting the woke in there, and it's literally just a woman doing badass things, and then being like, well, this doesn't appeal to me. This doesn't fit like my expectations of what women have to do. Why are they forcing this?
Or the sexism of expectations, which could be a perverted view of basically, how come this, I think it's usually this particular woman from Resident Evil, doesn't have big breasts anymore, and I'm like, I don't care. How do I say this? I'm a pure. How do I say this? Okay. This user is the Gamergate basher. I bash some of Gamergate, mainly like I somehow need to care in perversive like sense the breast size of a game character. Respectfully, I have a life and I touch grass and I do not care. But apparently that's wokeism because her breasts are smaller, I guess. Which, okay, maybe one person who might have been a blue-haired radical feminist was like, we need to decrease the size of the breast to make sexist people be angry. And I'm like, man, I guess I have to side with the radical feminists on this one. I don't care. I don't care. And as a Christian / new creature in Christ Jesus, you shouldn't care about breast sizes of a video game character, even if its intent is some radical feminist thing to make sexist people mad. Okay? Based? Like, I don't know, man. I don't care. I don't care.
Into these games, why are they injecting females into my into the military? Even though it's literally just like the reality that we live in. I mean, the right always hijacks certain words in order to like push a certain narrative, and just like push the same lie over and over again. Like, oh, you are trans, you acknowledge the existence of trans kids. That makes you a groomer because you want the kids to be trans. You want to groom kids to be trans. And it's like, no, I want trans kids to be able to be trans and actually have an enjoyable life, and do whatever makes them happier.
I can see that, and I do agree to an extent, but I think for some it might help to say, why are you indoctrinating our kids with this gospel stuff in Sunday schools? Like, what, why? Well, why? They're just kids. Leave them alone. And I think the general answer would be, well, I want kids to know Jesus Christ and to know him as their Lord and Savior. And hot take, I don't think there's really such thing as Christian kids. Because, like the same thing that I said, I don't think there's a lot of trans kids. I don't think there's a lot of Christian kids. Because, again, I'm consistent here. Kids are kids. I don't think they necessarily, at the moment, have the capacity to understand certain things. So, with that, I'm not saying it's impossible to have a Christian kid. It's like I'm not saying it's impossible to have a trans kid, but it's very rare because of the particular situation regarding what being trans means and what being a Christian means. And of course, they're different, obviously, but you know, that analogy might help some people to understand what she's trying to say here. Though they're not exactly the same, they might be almost completely different. They still have a similarity regarding, why are you giving this information to kids? The answer is because they need it, which in some cases I agree with, in some cases I don't, both for trans and Christian, again, depending on the situation.
And not, be suicidal and depressed and socially anxious. Like I, for example, used to be growing up. And then I keep talking about that because people spread the same lies. And then it's like, oh, you keep talking about children. Why are you obsessed with children? And it's like, I'm not making content for children. I'm just doing educational content so people, have something to relate to with my stories. And other people who want to learn more about like trans topics have a place to learn about these things.
They'll find whatever reason they possibly can to attack you. So like,
yeah,
when I used to stream with my face, I used a cartoon avatar for my edited videos, and I would use my face for live streams. I purposefully made my background in my live stream videos to be a bookshelf that had a bunch of things that I liked. So I had like Ranma 1/2 manga on there. I had Pokemon stuff. I had some like Dragon Ball stuff. Like just all kinds of stuff that I liked growing up and stuff that I still like to this day. So there was a YouTuber who went by the name of God's Guns, Guts, and Glory. And I did maybe 2 or 3 videos responding to him and his shitty takes. And so he makes a video where he's talking to, I think, his 11-year-old daughter, and he shows my video to his 11-year-old daughter, and it's just him explaining to her, that's what a pedophile looks like. That's what a pedo does. Do you see all the stuff in his background? That's what a pedophile has. And I'm just like, you're such a harmful son of a bitch.
Yikes.
That's what the fuck
That's
are you
crazy.
doing? So like it doesn't matter whether you're talking about trans kids or whether you're using a VTuber avatar or what. It doesn't matter. They're gonna find some way to do that. They're gonna find some way to make sure that they can call you whatever derogatory thing they want to call you. And that's been my experience as a heterosexual cis white guy in the south of, or in the southern area of the United States, the area where I have the most privilege. This shit still happens. It doesn't matter. Paladin Lost says that should have been a call to a lawyer. Not in America, Paladin Lost, because you have to be able to show damages. You cannot sue for defamation if you do not have damages, and his audience is too small to damage shit like his wiener.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like a lot of people romanticize lawsuits because, like, who wants to be stuck for like 2 or 3 years in like an expensive lawsuit, and like it's not going to help rebuild the reputation. You know, like, even if I would go ahead and sue Asmond for taking me out of context and pushing a certain narrative, like, obviously I'm also like in a different country.
Yeah.
He's also in Texas, so that's going to be like really difficult to prove that, like, hey, actually trans kids exist, and acknowledging that doesn't make you a groomer. And like, what would I... Well, like, there wouldn't be like any redemption. There's like no justice from that. The only thing that you can do is like keep going and spreading your message, and I don't know, just hope for the best.
Yeah.
Even worse, it gives cover to pedophiles. Yeah, exactly. Like, these people push this narrative because they know the most. It's the same with like the stranger danger. The abusers, like or like groomers, typically have a certain connection with the child that they are grooming.
And again, just to remind people, as somebody who is in Boy Scouts, or say Scouts of America, who is an Eagle Scout, and who is an adult leader / volunteer in a sense, I have to go through I think once a year. Yeah, I think once a year program of basically protecting kids. Basically, what Naya's saying is definitely true.
Whether it's through church or it's like a family relative, an uncle or someone. But these people push the lie that no, actually it's the gay person across the globe who's doing evil things, and we need to protect the children by, I don't know, having them go to church instead and not be in contact with anything sexual, even though sex ed is really important for children, not because, oh, it treats grooming and shows them something sexual, but it shows them, it teaches them, it educates them, and it prevents them, or like it makes it less likely for them to be victims of grooming.
If I'm correct, that is true, because they somewhat know when somebody who they may know really wants to be with them in the bathtub, in the way that it's like, well, hold on now, and that might not be so good. They have the information to know, wait a minute, this person might not have the good intention that I thought they had. I don't think they want to help me shower. I think they want to see me naked and do some bad things to me. No squares, things of that nature. So, yeah, it might sound concerning to some parents, but actually, it is actually going to protect your kid, because sadly, we live in the fallen world, and, you know, the least expected person who you might be related to might want to, sadly, just to be blunt, really do some bad things to your kid. And if you're not going to tell them that, then the school, I think, does believe they have some type of obligation to give them the information that they know is true, because it's the same thing with somehow parents in the home for a particular child doesn't agree with the gravity, but they need to know what gravity is, definitely. Because they might think they can fly even though they can't. Or basic science stuff. Like how to know how, like, just basic science stuff. And medicine. Some parents are actually against medicine. Well, there's a point to where it's like, well, the school's going to teach your kid medicine. I don't think you opt out on that. With such sex ed, I think it depends on the sex ed. I think parents should have a right to opt out a little bit of their children on that. Well, it just depends on what it is. Because it's like, there's just some things that the parent should have a lot of rights to their child, but there's a point where the government has an obligation for the good posterity of the nation to take care of all kids in a sense by good education, like med stuff and science and things of nature, and maybe even sex ed, because there's a point where it's like you're not doing the parent stuff. So I won't say we, the government, had to step in to become the parents, but it's like we gotta teach your kids some things. Like it's but because what the Supreme Court did, I think it might have opened the door to, let's be real, anybody, even if they're racist, can opt out their child because black people are there. If I'm correct, it might lead to that precedent due to quote-unquote religious conviction.
Because they can see through it. And if you shield children, they're easier to manipulate. And that's what a lot of Republicans want to push. Like, they advocate for things.
They do, because I think a big Exhibit A through Z is that the only party that is defending and that is voting for and is in defense for child marriage is the GOP. They want child marriage to stay in the States. Sadly, America has, for some reason, not banned nationwide child marriage because of quote-unquote religious convictions. Sure thing, bud. Disgusting.
Things like child marriage, for example. And it's gross. It's insane. And they also, what they are doing actually is grooming, because they are going in the street and being like, oh, look at this gay couple. They are like the freaks. They are evil. And then people go, like, these children go in school and they call each other gay as an insult. There were 3 children recently, 3 kids who threw acid at a trans woman walking to a pride event, throwing like acid. Children throwing acid at a trans woman with their children, and it's crazy how this is just normal to these people, because like, oh, they are evil anyways.
Oh, I need context. I just got back. What the fuck?
So I can send you the article actually.
Sure.
Let me I tweet a lot. Let me give me a second. Give me a second.
Bravo, thank you for the 10 bits. Says the ones that call everyone a groomer and that everything they disagree with groomers and pedophiles are the same ones kissing the orange felon's boots. Yeah, the guy who actually has sexual assault charges. The guy who's actually in the Epstein files. Wow.
Yeah.
And just a little sneak peek. Apparently, her doing a lot of tweets will be a bad thing. Apparently, I don't know how it makes sense, but a little sneak peek.
25-year-old woman was left with severe burns after 3 children threw what police suspect was acid on her in West Philadelphia. The victim, who police did not identify, but people said that she's a trans woman, she is trans, was walking to a pride event and got acid thrown at her by children.
Jesus.
And I was talking about like how transphobes groom their children.
Jesus help us in Jesus Christ's name, amen.
Children to be like not just as hateful but more hateful by pushing the lie. Oh, like these are freaks. These gay people are bad, and then they go into school and they think that like being gay is an insult. If you do something, if a boy wants to wear nail polish, for example, parents are like, oh, but what if he's being called gay and is going to get bullied? It's like, yeah, like the problem is literally parents teaching their children that this outside of the norm is bad and it deserves to be like attacked. That is like the problem.
Yeah, I do agree that and believe that is the problem. And I think some Christians might say that that's experience what was parents saying that Christians were all evil and bad, and so as I was a Christian, I got bullied. That might have been your particular experience. That might have happened. Though I think that's usually rare, especially if it's like from the South. It's like, I'm from the South. I think it'll be the other way around, pal, to be honest. But some have. Like they say, this is coming from the north, and I'm like, yeah, I can actually see that sadly happening. And I think parents in general, depending on the particular group or person that you're talking to your children to basically be viewed as a negative, you gotta be careful, especially if it's gay or Christian or whatever, to kind of just let them know, hey, violence is never the answer. These people are human beings, but their lifestyle or their beliefs could be harmful. Like it's a delicate balance. At least for me, it's like Christians aren't bad or gay people aren't bad either. Some are, but others aren't. This is what we believe in our household. But when you're outside, depending on the situation, you don't need to do anything. Don't promote anti that person or group of people or quote unquote lifestyle or belief or whatever lifestyle or belief or whatever. But I don't know, I'm not a parent, but it's like, I mean, the parent did a bad job if their kids thought that that was the acceptable response, just seeing what they might perceive as a trans woman who might not even been a trans woman, because again, sexism of low expectations. Like, what's going on here? It might not even been the parents' fault. It might have been their, let's be honest, charter or homeschool program or private school, things of that nature. Somebody who's been homeschooled, I can say, yeah, that might have been somebody homeschooled. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it was a public school, just a very bad one. Just bad.
It deserves to be treated like something that's bad.
Yeah. Also, by calling trans people evil is the last stepping stone to calling them less than human. I mean, they already call us like subhuman and shit. Like I was talking about how a lot of it is like recycled Nazi rhetoric, because like Magnus Hirschfeld, the guy who made the first gender clinic in Germany back in the 1920s, 30s, was also being called a groomer, a pedophile. And that was used to justify the book burnings, because like we need to stop this evil, we need to eradicate this cancer in our society. And they also do that when trans women get arrested, get put in jail, sent to men's prison, where they are being treated like a gift for aggressive inmates to like calm them down, known as V-coding. People are like, well, don't go to prison, don't do bad things if you don't want to get sexually assaulted in prison. And it's like the majority of like the lie is being pushed that like, oh, trans women are abusers, that's why they shouldn't go into the women's prison. But
then also let's put them in the male prison where we want them to get abused.
And if I'm correct, most trans inmates aren't abusive. There are some, but if I'm correct, it's not the majority. And this is gonna be a pretty big hot take, because they're gonna get into, the justice system and things of that nature. And it's still kind of important because it's good to know their thought processes of things besides the Asmondgold drama, and also some people might be like, yeah, maybe Naya was in the right here, but also she says this bad stuff, and I'm like, I'm gonna try to cover that as much as possible, and I might agree or definitely disagree here. I think the thing is, justice system on Earth should be punishment, but also be putative. I'm getting that right. There should be some restoring to the person if there is such restoring to them. It should not be, as they'll talk about, an endless cycle of never getting out of the prison cycle and possibly even mindset. The first thing to do is to get out of the prison mindset. And second is to try to get out of the cycle of prison, which for some they can do and others they cannot. It's very similar to the Christianity in a lot of ways, but we might get into them there, but if not, it is somewhat similar. Because there is punishment and justice, but there's also grace and redemption. Even those who are of the redeemed will be judged. In Revelation, the judgment seat of Christ. So, for some, they might be like, okay, this person was a very evil guy, but if he just said certain words, he gets to heaven. That's not how it works, but TLDR, that's how that works. 1. And 2, he's going to be judged too. And that judgment might be forever, which I talked about there. If I have enough, if I didn't, there's, I think you can do at least 5 cards per video, so I might have gone over, but if not, you should see that there, but if not, I talked about hell, and also there might be, let's say there might be a version of hell and heaven in a sense. You're still saved, but, only through fire, though. But, back to the justice system and prison system, etc. I would say, in generality, it's bad if anybody, regardless of any crime, gets raped because 2 sins don't equal righteousness. Though, depending on what their crime is, I might not cry over them getting raped, but I would say I'm not glad that happened. I would not say that's good at all, but I'm also not necessarily going to cry a river for them. Let's say it's a well-known guy who shot children in the head. It's bad that he got raped in prison, but also I'm not really sad for him, necessarily. Especially if it seems like he definitely is not in a sense way repentant of it, or say he regrets it. If he regrets it, then, there might be something there. But still, it's like, I'm not gonna cry over it. For some people, that might sound cruel, and for some, they're like, I definitely get what you're saying. It kind of depends on, I guess, what you think the justice system should be, which they're actually going to get into.
Yeah, but the reality is the overwhelming majority of trans women who go into who go into prison go there for prostitution or drug abuse,
which usually is because either A, since they're a social taboo in some parts, because sadly so-called Christians made it that way, their only option is sex work or prostitution or drug abuse to get by with life. Either that, or their so-called Christian-loving parents found out they were trans, and so they couldn't let that quote-unquote sin be in their household, so they basically just made them homeless. They kicked them out of their homes at 16 or 18 or 17, and basically they have nothing but the opportunity of sex work or prostitution or somehow drug use in some way, or join a gang to find some purpose, because they definitely didn't see it in Christianity. I wonder why. And do some drugs, and maybe go to prison, and then a cycle might happen because they had a very bad experience with so-called Christian-loving parents.
And the society that is being the environment for trans women is designed in such a way where that is the most likely outcome, because HRT is expensive. Trans women earn the least, the lowest amount of money, which is like 60 cents per dollar that the average worker gets. So like a lot of them do sex work, and then they get arrested for it, and then they get like then the majority, like the majority of society is like, well, this person is a danger to women. We need to put them into women's prison, and then they get assaulted, and then it's like, well, we don't care what happens to inmates.
Yep, and it's I think primarily it's a way to push the stripes of others into the back of your mind, because like, especially in American culture, once somebody's in prison, we basically just assume that they're there because they deserve to be there. And whatever happens to them, happens to them. It's really fucked up that we do that. And it creates a culture as well where, like, people go into prison and then life gets harder for them there. And now suddenly, when they leave prison, they can't get a job, so they have to resort to crime again, and then they get caught again, and now they're back in there. That's why we have the highest rate of recidivism in the whole fucking world. You create a cycle where this person is constantly going to go to jail, and now society, like people in society, are going to look at them and go, oh, well, I guess they deserve to be there in the first place. Whatever happens to them happens to them. Look, they even did the crime again. They deserve to be back.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the same with like if you're homeless, then.
And of course, this isn't for everything. I think sometimes repeat offenders still go more time in prison. All right, if you're a killer and it seems like there's no remorse, and then sadly, let's be real, in some places like California, where they just release them way too early, they're just gonna do it again because they might feel like there's an incentive. They're like, respectfully, it's California, and I can kind of do more than I want because they have a very far left-wing mindset of the justice system in a way that's way too far left, basically. Not everything. Not necessarily everything in California is like that, but you know, when you turn something that from a fine to some, I forgot specifically what they did. Basically, they lowered the consequences of a particular crime, which if I'm correct, led it to happen more. And it's like, how about we don't do that?
Then it's like, oh, you don't work hard enough. I can afford a house. Why can't you? You just need to put in more effort. You want society to hand you everything. Like I had to earn everything because like that's just the propaganda that is being pushed by this capitalistic society, that like if you just work hard enough, you can be as rich as Elon Musk. And it's like that's just not how it works. Steve, thanks for the follow. I appreciate it. Also, statistically, over 50% of convictions in the US per year revealed to be innocent at a later point. Yeah, and I also, that might be a hot take, but I don't believe that just because you go to prison, you deserve to be sexually assaulted, no matter what you did. That might be a hot take.
Say the take one more time.
I believe that if you go to prison, it doesn't justify being sexually assaulted, no matter what the charge was.
I can agree with that.
Because, like, I think the punishment for doing something that, you know, goes against the laws is prison, not whatever happens in prisons.
Yeah, the part of the punishment shouldn't be the beating. Part of the punishment shouldn't be the rape. Part of the...
Yeah, exactly.
Finally says, nah, pedophiles are free targets. But finally, here's the thing. What happens when you have that mentality, and then the person goes to prison, gets all of that assault done to them, and then at a later point, they are found to actually be innocent?
Also, it's very dangerous considering the lie is being pushed that if you're trans, you're a pedophile.
Yeah, also saying it says tough luck, then I don't think you need to be part of any communities, because you're right now in a community with a VTuber, Nyara, who was accused of being a pedophile by a large streamer, multiple large streamers.
Yeah.
So what happens if, for a completely different situation, what happens if in a completely different situation, Nyara has to go to jail, traffic violation, whatever, and then in jail for a handful of weeks, the rumor starts getting floated that Nyara's a pedophile because somebody who watched Asmon is on the cop force, and they go, oh, that's the whatever gender they decide to use. Who knows what one they'll use in that environment. That's the person who's that. And then they pass that information that this person who a streamer I trust called a pedophile is in our prison cell right now. You know what to do, boys. What happens in that situation, finally?
I know the police officers will straight up say, all right, boys, sick 'em. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's like rumors will grow, and sometimes there's crony, corrupt cops, or somehow some of the inmates kind of hear a conversation from the cops, like, hey, that person's the pedo, the famous pedo, you know, I watched saw him fellow, and they're like, whoa, a pedo's in our midst. Well, we know what we to do with pedos. We know what we definitely need to do with pedos. And where it goes on, and, well, basically everything else that Suris said happens, basically.
The punishment that society decided that should have happened because of the traffic violation was jail, not rape. And you just advocated for rape. Congratulations! That's not a lot of hypotheticals.
That literally happens,
That literally happened! That's
literally how they justify. It's how they justify V coding.
Finally, you're a rape apologist. Congratulations.
A trans woman gets charged with like prostitution or like drug abuse, gets put into prisons, and then it's like, well, we can't put them into the women's prison because like all trans women are rapists, so they need to be put into the men's prison where they are going to get raped. And then it's like, well, if you didn't want to get raped, then don't go to jail.
I am also reading a report from Amnesty International about how it is more often the case that when a trans woman is put into a male prison, they are raped. And this is not a one-off thing.
Especially if they pass enough, because yikesers. Some people in authority look at the fallen nature of man too much and have a weird view of certain things because, well, they're most likely not a Christian, or if they are, to be blunt, either they're backsliders or they're not truly Christian, or something's going on to get the wrong information. They're just not doing things right, to where they focus too much on the fallen nature of man as the world does. And so you get even trans people who are as passing as you can possibly be, but you know, they might have Y chromosomes or whatever. They have a certain male chromosomes, or I don't know, they look kind of buff, but women can look buff who are biological females, so that doesn't work. Point is, you're gonna get a lot of mistakes, and you're gonna get a lot of harm and a lot of sin. We as Christians are called to not do that for obvious reasons.
This is based off of meta-analyses. This one was back in 2005. This is before a lot of the actual gung-ho steam of the trans movement we've seen today has existed. Finally says, let's fix that issue. You're right. We can fix that issue by making sure that people like you know that they're rape apologists. That's how we fix that issue, finally. Accept that you're a rape apologist and then get better. That's how we fix that.
The thing is, like, it's called V coding. It's literally gifting gifting aggressive inmates who are most likely rapists a trans woman to like calm them down or like reward them for good behavior.
We're not talking about hypotheticals. We're talking about shit that happens.
It literally happens. And it shouldn't be the punishment no matter what the charge is.
Yeah. So can we in chat all recognize that Finally is a rape apologist and that they need to do better? I think we can all recognize that, because that's what you just did. That's what you just did.
I mean, you know, first time Jetta, I'm really tempted to just like ban you, but like I hope that like you are able to like see the like how fucked up your mentality is, because like I believe that rape is one of the worst things that you can do to another human.
And I agree.
And there's like no justification for it, no matter how bad someone is. Like even if like a really bad person, someone that I really hate, would get sexually assaulted, I would not cheer for that, because like, holy fuck, that's really messed up.
Yup. That is something
crazy. It's crazy to me to go like, oh, it's just a free target, anything goes.
I said, no, there isn't. I just don't care if it happens to someone that's POS. So that's not.
Here's the thing. Let's be honest here. Who would? Like, let me say it this way. I wouldn't care in the sense if I would cry over it and be like, this is the worst thing ever, because, hot take, as a Christian, I do believe that you open the doors to certain bad things once you sin. You know, if you're a pedo, you did a lot of sin, you might have opened the door for a lot more sin to come in upon you because of what you did via maybe being raped, which is bad and it's sinful, but it's like, it shouldn't have happened, obviously. It's sinful, it's bad, it's evil, it's wicked. But I'm not going to necessarily cry over it, depending on the situation. Especially if the pedo is definitely not regretful of what they've done. It's like, that's sad. You know, moving on. That shouldn't happen. We gotta do better. Sin abounds. Grace could abound more, but in prison, there's not that much grace, so sin abounds. It's a bad environment, bad spiritual environment. That's why you have, I think it's called clergy or pastors who visit the prison to bring some light in the darkness, so maybe rapes don't happen. I think that is one of the most good things that Christians have done regarding the government of America, is that possibly shining a light in the most darkest places ever, the prison, and actually make a prison almost like a church. Like, you know, from darkness to light, so that's actually a pretty good thing that I think we could have. I think that's when religion can be in the government, in a sense. In that sense. It could, of course, be abused, but I find that helps, you know?
About the language that you've used, and that language effectively has boiled down to you being a rape apologist. If you are okay with it happening, there is a term for that. It is called defense of the action.
I gotta be honest, this is, I think this is a little bit a problem with some leftists. You get too detailed to the point of you forgetting the just bluntness of things. If I say, I'm fine with it, it might be a, colloquial term meaning I'm not gonna put much effort into it, which might have been this person, though I still most likely definitely disagree with this chatter about their position here, because sin is sin, as a Christian, consistency here, but I'm assuming when they say, "Oh, I'm fine with it," maybe in a fuel of emotions, because obviously, if we're talking about it, it's like I don't care or I'll be fine with it. They most likely are in anger because they realize that somebody did something very bad to kids, and they realize that something bad has happened to them. Even though I would disagree with that bad thing happening, they might. I don't know if they do. But like just in a general conversation, emotionally, I might say I don't care. Or, that's fine. But of course, if we're gonna have a big intellectual conversation, maybe we're gonna be like, okay, I don't think it's actually fine, and I don't think Suris gets that. But I could be wrong here. Saying it's fine does not justify apologetics. Apologetics is defending something. Saying it's fine or it's okay in a sense is not necessarily apologetics here. It could be, but I don't think it might be here. Maybe.
If you are okay with an action happening, then you are defending the action happening. If you are defending an action...
No. I'm sorry, no, and no. Saying you're okay with something does not equal you're defending it. I'm okay with men wearing feminine-like makeup. I don't necessarily care to an extent. Now, as a Christian, I do believe there are some standards and rules to that. I think mostly men should not wear makeup or do stuff that's feminine, especially if you're a male who essentially identifies as a man. You got order and standards. I can't ignore what scripture says, but I also can't ignore what reality says, in a sense. So I'm okay with it, but it doesn't mean I'm defending, in a sense of a way, men wearing makeup. I'm not really defending it, I'm just saying it's fine. I'm not defending it unless if somehow crazy GOP freaks are trying to ban men wearing makeup, and then I have to, in a sense way, defend it by saying it's okay. Or more specifically, I'm defending the right for people to do things that's not gonna be harmful, really. It might be harmful for them spiritually, but that's for a spiritual physician. The spiritual physician, Jesus Christ, not the arms of the state crashing down on you, because that's just not how that works. You're using the wrong tool here, basically.
action happening, the word for that is apologia. A person who engages in apologia is an apologist. If the action that you are okay with is rape, then you are defending rape. If you are defending rape, then you are engaging in rape apologia. If you are engaging in rape apologia, you are a rape apologist. There you go. There is the logic, and I think it is incredibly internally consistent.
It might be consistent, but it's not necessarily accurate or correct.
Yeah, like the thing is, like, if you go like, oh, murder is wrong, but if I don't like the victim, then it's actually good that it happened. Like, what the fuck? Holy shit!
That might be something like a vigilante sniping a pedo, just to keep the conversation at basically what it is. I would be against any vigilante justice, because where do you draw the line, and that's bad, but especially if somehow this sniper knew this pedo, and they feel like that the law was not going to help, or they just wanted to do it themselves, I think they should still be charged, because depending on the situation, unless if they sniped him doing a terrible wicked thing, the pedo, doing a terrible wicked thing to a kid, then maybe they shouldn't be charged, maybe, but if, like, they might know this guy's a pedo, but they really don't know, or something like that, or whatever, and they're just sniping them, I think they should most likely still be charged, depending on the situation, or at least an investigation. There's always an investigation, to an extent, basically. And so, with that, I would say, sin is still sin. I mean, it depends again on the situation. Vigilante justice is really a good thing, but sometimes it could be, because why do people like Batman? I mean, come on, it's not. It's kind of not necessarily because of the vigilante stuff, but it's a lot of other things. But it's like he is still kind of breaking the law. But I think we can all agree that it's fine that Batman does, because we know the system of Gotham is quite bad, and you kind of need a Batman, or they want him, but it's that, what's the quote? It's the hero that they want, but not the one that they need. I'm sorry, it's been a long time since I've watched the Dark Knight trilogy, okay? Give me some slack, please.
It's crazy. That's actually kind of insane.
Okay, I think it's, Batman is the hero that Gotham wants, but not the one that they need, or something like that. I think basically it was saying it's cool that he's here, but Gotham also needs to clean up their mess as Gotham itself. You cannot always have Batman. Gotham's gotta do better. I think that's what it was saying. Again, I could be wrong, and again, cut me some slack, please.
This Asura points out that also using rape only further amplifies the rape issue. Guys, I figured out how to solve the problem of rape in prisons. More rape.
Yeah.
What?
I mean,
okay, cool.
It's also like this weird mentality, because like the goal of jail is not to like eternally punish someone, but to like rehabilitate them. But especially if you like, yeah, I think that like in the US it's literally designed in a way
that's what it should be.
that this person gets arrested again and again and again.
Yeah.
And because it's just like free labor for them.
Well, that's because we have this cool thing called the 13th Amendment, which never actually criminalized slavery. It just kicked the bucket one step forward.
Yeah, and then you have like an environment that is designed to like basically imprison the group that was enslaved before anyway. And then people go like, oh, these are criminals. Don't do bad things if you don't want to go to prison and be sent to like prison camps. It's kind of insane.
Elias says, oh, go on, sorry.
Oh, it's the same with like calling anyone a terrorist and then being like, terrorists at being tortured at CIA black sites. And that's like, well, but these are terrorists, so they deserve to be tortured. Even though torture is not an effective method to get the information, and a lot.
Well, sometimes it could be, and again, it just depends. I think interrogation's fine, but then torture, it's like, I don't know if that's really the best thing. But also, let's be blunt, usually when it comes to terrorists in America, it's usually we're talking about radical Islamic extremists, ISIS, things of that nature. To be honest, they respond to violence. So sometimes, in some cases, you gotta use torture, because that's the only language that they might know. Because you can't just say X, Y, and Z, because they might not even care. Because that's not their language. To be blunt, not all the time, but sometimes, maybe. Hot take, maybe. Most likely not much, if not at all, but maybe. Again, we live in the fallen world. But that doesn't excuse sin, but it's like, also we live in the fallen world. It's a balancing act, folks, in a sense.
A lot of these people there are innocent. And considering that these people, like who these people call terrorists, I don't really like the narrative that is being pushed.
LA protesters are called terrorists right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And therefore we should send 2,000 National Guard at them, and we should shoot women in heads. So after we're done with this collab, I'm going to be talking about the LA protests, and I have right now 15 looks like 15 tabs open, all with articles or videos or just shit from the LA protests, and all kinds of shit is happening there. Citizens are being trampled by horses. Rioters more like, all right, cool, so you're okay with people. You know what? Actually, I've got the answer for this. I've got the answer for this.
My answer quickly is, I mean, he's going to talk about this a little bit later on, but during the Revolutionary War, we were rioters, you know. I don't know. You wanna say our fellow ancient patriots of America were rioters? I mean, in a sense, yeah, they were. Is that bad? I mean, generally speaking, a riot's not the best thing, but like he will say later on, and it's true, sometimes riots are the language of the unheard, because once they tried any other form of language, they gotta get your attention. Again, I honestly think that's a very bad argument. Breaking things, it's like, okay, you'll get your attention, but it's not going to be good attention. But it's like, okay, maybe people didn't need to riot in order to get their message across, depending on what that is. Because maybe we disagree with that, and so they got to get a temper tantrum, which is rioting, which usually happens on the far left. That's just a fact. You know, it's like we're still not going to listen to you because your ideas or your concerns might not actually be concerns, or their concerns are good, depending on the situation.
That's so weird that during a collab stream, I have banning powers. That's wild.
I don't know if like I banned them in my stream, but like Jesus Christ. First time chatter. There we go.
Yep. I just banned them as well over on my end.
Probably an Asmondgold watcher.
So it's like rioters more like, you know what? Sure, let's call them riots. And now let's go talk to Martin Luther King from his grave, and let's figure out what a riot is. What is a riot? A riot is the voice of the unheard. So what message isn't being heard? If the message not being heard is get ICE out of our fucking towns, then yeah, maybe the answer to that is for citizens to rise up against ICE, which they have.
Or, I would say, self-defense against ICE if they're beginning to be somewhat of a terrorist group, or at least a group of ICE agents becomes to be terrorists. I think you have some self-defense rights. I think you, depending on your state, have your stand your ground laws. I'm not advocating for any violence, because I don't think it's good to do domestic terrorism on the whole organization of ICE. I don't think that's going to help anybody at all. That's just going to make your side look worse. Which, let's be real here, that seems to be what's going on to an extent. People, I think, generally speaking, I could be wrong, but I think generally speaking right now in America, people don't like ICE, and also people don't like people who don't like ICE to the point that they are committing violence against ICE. That I agree, by the way. ICE shouldn't be a terrorist organization, but we should also not do domestic terrorism against the organization of ICE. Basically, some parts of ICE or some groups of ICE agents are terrorists. That's just to be honest. But we should not do domestic terrorism against the whole organization of ICE, or every single ICE person. Because not every single ICE person is doing something bad. Sometimes they're actually doing their job. Most likely rarely, but it's possible. It's how like firefighters and cops. Border Patrol seems to get less flack because it's like firefighters, but for ICE, they're like the police. They get a little bit more flack. Like how it just seems to be the situation regarding immigration enforcement.
They have been doing around the country. Wild.
Exactly. If ICE is disappearing, undocumented or like even documented migrants because they look a certain way and they don't give them due process and send them into fucking prison camps, I feel like it's very justified to like rise up and actually, protect the, or like use your right to protest.
Imagine
And,
celebrating the American Revolution and also saying, but rioting is always bad.
That's crazy. It's basically Gestapo, US Bush. Oh yeah, 100%.
100%. I
mean, even the FBI is doing like Gestapo shit with like, oh, send us tips for doctors who do genital mutilation on children.
Nice.
It's crazy. Sorry.
Sethy Lit.
Which obviously, it's like the FBI saying, hey, we just want to get some tips on people who are actually not doing those things because, well, we're transphobic. I mean, to be blunt.
Lich, Nice Tess, It's Nearstar, Strawberry Kitty VT, and JJ Fireblast. Thank you all for the follows. I appreciate it.
Nice Tess and Wanderer Rabbit. Thanks for the follows. I appreciate y'all.
Also, there was a comment I wanted to respond to earlier about rehabilitation. It said, from our perspective, sure, prison's for rehabilitation, but from their perspective, it's for punishment. But see, what you do there though is you've kicked the can, because you have to ask a right winger, what is the point of punishment? Is the point of punishment to get even? If so, surely the victims should be the ones doing the punishment, right? Not the state. So if the point of punishment isn't to get even, let's look at all the instances where we've done punishment. If you are a parent, for what reason do you punish your child? You don't do it to get even with your child, unless you're really abusive piece of shit.
Sociopath.
Like, that's insane behavior. So if you're a well-adjusted parent, why do you punish a child? You punish a child so that they will learn. What do they need to learn? They need to learn that something is wrong. Okay, cool. What do you want them to do after they learn that? You don't want them to do the behavior again. Excellent. Cool. So punishment is so that the person learns and does not do the behavior again. We've kicked the can down the road, but it's still the same can. The rehabilitation crowd and the punishment crowd don't realize they're the same crowd. They just disagree on what the method is. But they are the same crowd, and they talk past each other because we use language like, it's not for punishment, it's for rehabilitation, and then the right says, but it is for punishment because they did something bad. You have to bridge that gap. What is the punishment for? Aliyah says... Oh, sorry, go on.
Oh, yeah, the problem that I always see is, like, if you have, like, a systemic issue, a lot of people are going to like fall into the same behavior again, and they're going to be arrested. Yep. If you are, a trans woman, and the only thing that you can do in order to like get HRT and like have like housing and stuff is sex work, and then you get like arrested for it. Like, you're not going to come out of prison and you're like, well, okay, now I'm going to like get quote unquote a real job and work at, oh, wait, I've been to prison, so I'm not going to get any job, actually. So I'm going to continue doing sex work, and I'm going to get arrested again for doing that.
Yep.
And it's just not...
Yeah, so if you guys don't know, usually when you have a criminal record, it's very hard to get a job. Especially if you're a felon. Unless you're the president of the United States, then, that's kind of different. But besides that, especially for felons, it's very hard to get a job. I think just for any criminal record, if you've just been in jail once, it's hard to get a job because some businesses or some businesses are like, we don't want people who have criminal records because it might look bad with our company, whether that, good or bad. In a sense, that makes sense, but also in a sense, it's like, it depends. Like, are they merciful, or have they been resentful, or like, that was my past me? Yes, I do have a record, but that record doesn't define me, things of that nature. But even if you say that, they're still like, we wish we could hire you. You seem to be a pretty good potential employee, but you have that record. and that might look bad on us, the company, so we can't. I'm sorry. And it might happen over and over and over again until you're like, well, the only work that I had was sex work, so I'm just going to do that. Which, hot take, I don't think sex work is really real work. I think to an extent it's just slavery, to be honest. Sex slavery, I won't go there because there is a difference. Sex slavery is usually non-consensual, but like, basically, I don't think it's work, to be honest.
Fixing the problem, because like it's not designed to fix the problem.
Nope, it's designed to be a hole that we throw people in that they can't claw out of.
Yeah.
Subpoena
so
says...
You're just going to complete the cycle. Go ahead.
Subpoena says, I once talked to a guy claiming that punishment is to appease the public because they want that for some reason. Yeah, but you know how you can appease the public? You give them a new fucking season of Transformers Beast Wars.
Again, we got a problem with words here. Respectfully to Suris here, because I think he's a pretty good guy, at least when it comes to content creating, and just a good person. I think he helps out friends. He really helps out friends. I was in one of his streams. I haven't really talked to him. Maybe one day in the future. Maybe. But again, respectfully to Suris here, it's like, appeasing the public here means basically to get justice. That's what's going on here. Appeasing the public isn't getting their attention. In this case, appeasing the public means to show them justice for what has happened. Because people want to see justice for those who have committed stuff that's unjustifiable. So respectfully again, Suris, I think you're missing the point of the words here. Possibly.
You can appease the public by making a new season of Yu-Gi-Oh! That has Yugi and Yami at the front instead of whatever protagonists are using right now. You've got 12 billion ways to appease the public. Let's see here. Aaliyah High says, when you talk to most conservatives, they don't want people getting back out. They want longer sentences, and they want to disenfranchise those who get out of prison so that they'll be sent back in. So I feel like I'm in a uniquely privileged position living in southern Georgia in Marjorie Taylor Greene's district. I talk to conservatives all the time, and one of the things that I've talked to them about is prison. And usually the idea is that institutionalizing somebody serves two purposes. It's to get them away from society so that they will not be a danger to the people in society, and then to teach them a lesson. Those are the two things that it's usually for. Again, saying that it's for punishment is just asking for teaching a lesson, but not knowing what the proper tool is for teaching that lesson.
Yeah, I also, I'm not a fan of like death sentences. I think
hot take. This might be a hot take amongst Christians, but at least for me, I'm on the side of anti-death penalty to an extent. I'm not anti-death penalty absolutist, because I do agree and believe that to an extent there are some heinous and wicked sinful crimes to a point to where it's like, it would be best if you were not here anymore. To be blunt, you're just that bad to where it's like, it would be better for you to not be here anymore because you just went too far. We will let God deal with you in the afterlife, my friend. Well, that's a very, 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 very rare circumstance. Yes, it should be. But generally speaking, it should be basically banned. The death penalty. Because I do not trust the fallen nature of man to dictate who lives and who dies. The Old Testament was different. Genesis was different. New Testament is different. We are under a new covenant. I understand what Scripture says. But even then, again, I'm not a full-on anti-death penalty absolutist, because I think that just does not work in a fallen world. But also in a fallen world, doesn't mean I just give them that power to sentence someone to death. Occasionally. Laissez-faire, just on a whim. It has to be with rigorous evidence to the point of, we know, way beyond a shadow of a doubt, basically, that this person did this many heinous crimes in a way that's so heinous, it would be best for them to let God deal with him in the afterlife. Which is a rare and very high bar, as it should be.
I mean, I'm German. We don't have that.
I don't think the state should have the right to execute citizens. I think that's a full stop thing. I don't think the state should have the right to execute citizens.
I think it's just crazy. It's like especially because because it's like such a flawed system, and even like an eye for an eye, I don't really agree with that. I'm not really a fan of that type of rhetoric.
Phonerk says, again, Suris, you're assuming these people are arguing in good faith. So here's the thing. When you're talking with somebody at a taco bar in real life, or at a card shop in real life, or at a friend's house in real life, assuming that they're arguing in bad faith makes you lose the argument too. I can do the let's assume the conservative is going to argue in bad faith when I'm talking about some guy like Ben Shapiro or Matt Walsh or Asmondgold. I can do that because these people have a prior track record, but you cannot convince somebody to come over to your side if that is your first assumption about them in the argument and you argue that way. The tactics you end up using do not end up changing people's minds when those are the people that you're going to lunch with. When those and I'm not saying this as the hypothetical streamer from his high horse. I'm saying this as the guy who goes to my Taco Mac and listens to the Alex Jones conspiracy theorist tell me about the babies being taken down in the Jewish tunnels. Like, that's my Tuesday.
I feel like if you just assume that everybody argues in bad faith, then there's like no point in talking to anybody anyways. You're just going to talk to people who agree with you anyways, and just dismiss everybody who gives you like a little bit of pushback. And like I fall for that trap too. Every now and then people come in here and they want to like start shit with me, call me like a groomer or like a pedo because I acknowledge trans kids. And then it's like, okay, I'm just going to ban you and dismiss you. But sometimes I have people actually want to hear me out, and the problem is it's incredibly difficult when it comes to like strangers over the internet to tell whether or not somebody is actually there to like hear you out and change their mind and learn something, or if they are just here to like waste your time and like argue with someone.
Yep.
And I don't know, sometimes when people come in here being like, oh well, I don't mind trans people, but I just don't want them to transition. Like it's really easy to be like, well, you're transphobic and I'm just going to like toss you away. But sometimes you're going to push people away who can be saved.
Yep. Espen says, it's been a while since I've heard about the guy at the Taco Bell with the conspiracies. Not a Taco Bell, it's a taco bar. There's a difference. The taco bar is actually cheaper than the Taco Bell is these days, because it's $1.25 for a taco at the taco bar. And the reason you haven't heard much more about him is he hasn't he hasn't been up there. He's been replaced with a different person who's obsessed with buying $6,500 porcelain horses, which is far less interesting than the last guy. There's two people who are usually there. One woman who doesn't say a whole lot, and one older woman who buys a lot of porcelain horses and talks a lot about porcelain horses. They are far less interesting than the crazy conspiracy guy. That's why I haven't made videos on them.
So, yeah, it's like really, really difficult to like tell, but like what the right has is basically just the ignorance, like weaponizing the ignorance of the common people, and like using broad language like, oh, leave the kids alone, we just want to protect kids, we just want to protect women.
I agree. I think that the big problem regarding the relationship of language and right wingers, and regarding the relationship of language and left wingers, is that with right wingers, it's so vague that it's very hard to know what they're talking about, and for the left, it's not even so vague, but it's so technical or too technical, then it's very hard to have a conversation with them. Because it's like, no, I'm not even saying that. What's going on here?
And then people are going to like be predisposed, and a lot of people don't want to like hear the other side. But sometimes people are just like really misinformed.
Though you can still have a conversation with them, just saying it might be harder to have a conversation with them. Doesn't mean you should not have a conversation with them. That just means you can have a conversation with them, but just it depends on the left winger. And same thing with the right winger. It just depends.
On like gender affirming care, how it looks like, not just for trans youth but also for trans adults. I have a lot of people who are like very confused with the argument where I was saying that like if a kid cannot consent to medical treatment, HRT, then why can they consent to puberty? And it's like, oh, because like one thing is natural and the other thing is like chemicals and stuff like that.
And so is arsenic and cocaine. They're both naturally occurring substances. Natural doesn't mean good.
Yeah,
cancer's natural.
Like, the thing is like you gotta explain to these people that like puberty is basically just having a dominant hormone give your body changes. You can induce these changes by giving someone specific hormones. So it's literally the same thing, but by giving a trans kid, by which I mean a 14, 15, 16-year-old, not a 8-year-old, hormones, they are going to get changes that align with their gender identity, and they're also under constant supervision. So if something goes wrong, it can be adjusted, or maybe someone's going to figure out, hey, these changes don't align with me either. But
like also, it's the easiest thing in the world should be to go, hey, puberty blockers are reversible for the most part. There's a couple of things that don't reverse in very, very select versions, but for the most part, the statement puberty blockers are reversible is true. Because just like how late onset puberty is fixed by the puberty finally happening, that's all puberty blockers are doing. So
yeah,
the easiest thing in the world should be, hey, this kid is asking questions, so let's give them puberty blockers so that they have time to ask those questions. Ideally, they are on the puberty blockers until they hit the legal age of consent, and then they can choose for themselves if they would like to get off the blockers and go through puberty as normal.
And I think a better way to say it's like basically for giving them enough space and time to make sure that any decision that they make is the right one, the good one. Though, to be honest, it is confusing, and it's like I wouldn't do that, but I do understand for some it has saved their lives. So, yeah.
Or if they would like to instead choose a different path. That should be the easiest conversation in the world. Instead, it gets mixed up with child mutilation for some stupid reason.
Yeah.
And
chemical alterations, life-altering changes, life ruinations, shit like that.
I had appendicitis when I was a kid. They mutilated me. My belly button used to be an outie, and it is now an innie, because that is what they...
Also circumcision, but it's like, obviously, I understand the arguments, counter-arguments. Hey, real quick, if you want to dedicate your life to Christ, aka get saved, or if you're a backslider and want to rededicate your life to Christ, or if you want the baptism of the Holy Spirit with the evidence of speaking with tongues, those prayers are in the description down below.